Griselbrand versus Melek Izzet Paragon. We're on the draw, we'll keep that. We can have a look at our opponent's hand with duress. I'm not in a rush to cast Dark Ritual. Might go for it on turn 2 actually, so that we can go into Charcoal Diamond and Jet Medallion. But first of all, we'll go for this duress on our opponent. Try and get some counter magic out of their hand. Okay, well there's no counter magic there. They've got a Curious Homunculus, Epic Experiment, Izzet Locket, and a Mind Stone. Let's just get rid of the Mind Stone there. And then depending on what we draw next turn, I might go in for the Dark Ritual, but we should probably hold on to that to try and get into Griselbrand. And they rip into a Mana Crypt, so apparently we did that duress a turn too early. And just managed to Windmill Slam their entire hand down anyway. So let's go for the Charcoal Diamond. And we're probably seeing our opponent's commander next turn, but we can go for Jet Medallion and Dismember anyway. And then if they get their commander down again, we've now got Yawgmoth's Will to recast the Dismember. Well, it looks like they're actually going for the Epic Experiment. Yeah, that Mana Crypt has really done our opponent the world of good. This is exile the top X cards for each instant and sorcery. Okay, Modo, come on. Let's try again. Exile the top X cards of your library for each instant and sorcery. With CMC X or less amongst them, you can cast it without paying the mana cost. And all cards exiled this way that weren't cast go into the graveyard. They choose not to go for Chain Reaction. And they did draw with Faithless Looting and discarded the land and the Talisman. Alright, so let's drop the land. Go in for the Jet Medallion, and then what are we on next turn? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Go down to 4, then up to 5, 6, 7, which is what our Griselbrand will cost. So yeah, I think we're looking pretty good here. Like I said before, we can dismember our opponent's commander, and yeah, the Dismember won't cost us any life either because it's going to cost 1 generic less, so the 2 Phyrexian mana can be paid for with the Swamp. That has been transformed. I've never seen this transform before. It has Prowess, it's a 3/4 and makes instants and sorceries cost 1 generic less to cast. And going in for Faithless Looting again, I was worried our opponent was going to go for a wheel there. Although I don't suppose a wheel would be the end of the world for us. Then a Deep Analysis from our opponent. They'll draw a couple of cards with the flashback. Yeah, still going to hold on to the Dismember here. I'm not going to get rid of that thing. We'll take a hit for 5. And then deciding to pass with 2 blue mana held up, so they may well have counter magic. In fact, they might actually be holding on to a 3 mana counter spell which they can cast now thanks to this thing being in play. So that'll be intriguing to see if we actually should have gotten rid of that. Well, that's one thing we can do. We can go him to Turak, play it really safely. Yeah, let's go him to Turak and try and bait counter magic out of our opponent's hand. Get rid of High Tide is really good to get rid of. Our opponent has 3 islands in hand, and they get rid of an Izzet Boilerworks as well. Now, it's noteworthy that we could go for Yawgmoth's Will and into duress, but I want to hold on to Yawgmoth's Will because once we've cast these 2 cards, we're going to have much more to do off the back of a Yawgmoth's Will. Going in for their commander, and they've got a land on top, which I don't think they can do anything with. You may cast a top card if it's an instant or sorcery. Swinging in at us, we'll take the hit for 3. We don't want our opponent to cast counter magic on this Dismember and give this +1/+1, so we'll just let it hit us for now. And then we'll go in for the Dismember. And now we're on Griselbrand, I think. We've got a fetch for putting into our graveyard for when we draw into Crucible. it also activates the Fatal Push as well. So we go Dark Ritual and cast our commander. Then we'll draw into some cards before our opponent hopefully draws into anything that can counter stuff like that. We can hold up Go for the Throat. So let's just discard a swamp here, I think. Get into Cavern of Souls as well, which is really good because I do imagine our opponent's running counter magic in an Izzet deck. We haven't seen any yet, but I imagine it's in there. But it's going to be tough for our opponent to deal with a Griselbrand in a counter burn deck or whatever this is. Melek comes back down. That's going to die again to the Go for the Throat. And I highly doubt they swing in here. They'd lose a creature and they'd gain us 7 life thanks to Griselbrand's lifelink. And then at the end of the turn they decide to drop that land into play that they had on top before. We knew they had that. Let's go for the Throat on the Melek. And now we can start swinging in with Griselbrand and drawing even more cards. Let's get the Bojuka Bog out of the way because that is a tap land and we don't want our opponent flashing things back. Because blue and red are particularly good at doing that. Swing in with Griselbrand, a few hits like this should do it. And actually, if our opponent plays it out, we've got a chance of finishing off the game with a Sign in Blood, which those of you who watch all the games will remember that one of the previous multiplayer games that I've played, we had the chance to win the game with Sign in Blood. Now, it's much more satisfying to win a multiplayer game with Sign in Blood than it is a single player, but this is still one of the achievement unlocked type effects that I want to go for. I've never won a game with Sign in Blood, so we've got the chance here if our opponent plays it out. Just going for Melek again. We've just drawn too well for them this game, unfortunately. But props to them, they seem to be playing it out. Going in with the 3-4 again. They're not having the best of luck getting into instants and sorceries off the top with Melek. Okay, so let's just drop the swamp. We'll draw some cards just for the sake of it. And I wonder if our opponent had an X-Burn spell on top, whether they could actually kill us off. I don't think they've got enough mana. They've got 3, 6, 9 and 10. No, probably not. And there we are, drawing into a whole heap of cards. Let's swing in with our opponent. And then we can finally, after many years, get into this Sign in Blood victory. It's not as though I've ever tried to get a Sign in Blood victory off, but this has been a long time coming. Point that at our opponent. They lose 2 life and draw 2 cards. And there we are. Big thank you to my opponent for playing that out, because I'm sure that was pretty miserable for them. They did rip into a mana crypt early on, so I don't suppose they can make any complaints there. They finally get a Telling Time on top, which is an instant that they could have cast with their commander, but that was going down anyway, thanks to us drawing into our Malicious Affliction. So yeah, that's how the deck's supposed to run. Ramp, get into Griselbrand with enough life to draw cards, and hopefully take the game from there. I think that was a fast enough game that we can get another one on the go. Griselbrand versus Melek, Izzet Paragon. Temple of the False God is not much use to us, but we can cast a couple of 2-mana spells whilst we're drawing into, hopefully, drawing into lands to make Temple of the False God relevant. So let's just start the game off nice and slowly. Give our opponent a chance to actually do something. They start things off with a fetch land. We'll go in for the Cold Steel Heart. Play out our Cavern of Souls to make our commander uncounterable. And then obviously naming black with Cold Steel Heart. A Goblin Electromancer for our opponent. That's got Fatal Push written all over it. Might as well play Temple of the False God because it saves us playing it on another turn. We'll go Mind Stone first of all. And then we could go Jet Medallion. Yeah, let's go Jet Medallion here because I don't want our opponent scoop into a fatal push. It's a shame that you have to play around things like that, but I don't want to get those types of victories where people scoop. Okay, going for by force, getting rid of all of our stuff. So apparently should have gone for the Goblin Electromancer. We draw into a land. Let's definitely drop the fatal push there. My plan was to go for Wretched Confluence and draw some cards and get rid of the Electromancer, but shouldn't have gone easy on my opponent. That's the dilemma you draw into with playing on Magic Online. You don't want people to scoop early, but you don't want to give them a chance to come back either. Telling time for our opponent. Look at the top three. One into your hand, one on the top and one on the bottom. Doesn't seem as though they're holding up counter magic. We get into a swamp, so now Temple is active. I think we just hold up Wretched Confluence here. We can draw a card and lose a life 3 times. Think Twice. Followed by a flashbacked Think Twice. So just in case our opponent's going to draw into some free counter magic, we'll get down this now. Well, we've got a couple of tutors there. How much mana are we on? That's 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. So we'll crack this and get a swamp. And then if we tap these down into that, that's 3 mana and then 6, yeah, so we don't net anything there. Let's just go like that into... We'll go for a Grim Tutor because I don't think we're going to be casting anything here. We can just go for Thran Dynamo, I think. Actually, we're best going for Cabal Coffers, aren't we? So let's do that. Better to be safe. So that can be Cabal Coffers. And then we'll go for probably just a Soul Ring with the Demonic Tutor, I think. So let's draw into and play the Soul Ring. And then that can be us done. Probably getting into our commander next turn. Okay, they've got more artifact removal. That's exactly why I decided not to go for the Thran Dynamo play. At least we did that with some throwaway mana. We get into Expedition Map, which we can use to grab Urborg. Now, luckily for us, our commander is going to be uncounterable. And we're most likely going for Expedition Map into Urborg next turn. Our opponent's doing something at the end of this turn. Target player returns each commander they control from the battlefield to the command zone and draw a card. Alright, well, we'll just see what we draw into off of Griselbrand. We get a heap more mana. Well, it's not actually that much more mana, is it? Because our lands have been really clunky this game. But we've got Command Beacon if needs be. So let's just leave it there in case our opponent's got some kind of burn. And we'll get rid of some swamps. A Swarm of Intelligence for our opponent. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, you can copy it. That's probably really good in a Spellslinger deck. Let's drop a swamp. Then we'll go for the extra planar lens. Sacrifice the tapped swamp. And now the question is, do we just go in for our commander again? How much is it? It's going to be 10, isn't it? So if we go like that, we only get 3 mana. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. Yeah, I think we just go in for Noxious Gearhulk here. We'll get rid of that Gremlin because it's going to keep pecking away at us. And then we'll play out the Expedition Map. And we'll hold on to Liliana's Triumph. Because I think we might see our opponent's commander next turn. Oh, a High Tide doubled up is not good. Luckily our opponent's only got 4 cards in hand, but they might be able to cast stuff off the top. They've only got 2 islands in play is the only saving grace, really. Well, a turnabout, that's going to get them even more mana, and it's 2 turnabouts. Swarm of Intelligence doing some work here. Let's see if they can storm off. They untap all their lands. I was wondering whether to tap down our swamp there to float mana, but I did assume that they were going to untap their own stuff to ramp a whole bunch, and yeah, they've done that twice in a row. So let's see what they grab here. Might be just a big X spell. And there we are. X into 24 deals X damage to us, and a target player draws X cards, so that's exactly why you shouldn't just give up whenever you see Griselbrand come into play. We did draw a bunch of cards there, but it still wasn't enough against our opponent, so we'll take the hit. And that knocks us down to -10, would have been at -34 had that have gone off as well. So we'll say good game to our opponent. And because this is a brand new deck, I think this video should be a triple whammy. What say you? Griselbrand versus Iroas, God of Victory. Ooh, with no mana. 39 lands in this deck. And we're on the play, so yeah, definitely going to have to throw that away. And then getting into Cabal Coffers, which is currently useless to us. And what can we do with Chrome Mox? We might have to throw Hero's Downfall underneath that. Well, we'll keep that, or actually we could throw away the Chrome Mox, couldn't we really? No, let's throw the Cabal Coffers away. No use to us just yet. And then we'll go land into Chrome Mox. And then underneath the Chrome Mox we will put Hero's Downfall. And now we can cast the Arcane Signet. We play the Homeward Path next turn, play Read the Bones, and hope for something really good on top, like a Necropotence. Or at least some huge ramp spell, because we are not doing too well here. Well, that's the last card we want to see. Drawn into that a lot during my play testing, and it's one of the only big spells in the deck. So let's go. We'll hold on to a black mana just in case. And we'll go Read the Bones, scry 2 and draw 2. Yeah, we don't want either of those. We want ramp. Okay, let's go Expedition Map. And maybe going in for Ancient Tomb with that would be of some use to us. We might even have to be really spiky and wasteland our opponent. Luckily they're off to a slower start than we are, but we're not exactly doing much with the cards in hand. Okay, well there's a Sign in Blood, that's not nothing. So let's cast that and target ourselves. And we get into some mana. Again, not going to complain about drawing into mana. Get ourselves into a swamp, and then what are we on here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 with Ancient Tomb. And then a swamp the next turn, yeah. So we're actually quite close to Griselbrand here. Don't know what to name with Pithing Needle, so we won't name anything. And then at the end of our opponent's turn, we are going to go in for... I think we can go for Temple of the False God, actually. Yeah, if we drop a swamp and then go for Temple, and that won't lose us as much life. Our opponent just deciding to leave some stuff untapped and pass the turn. The good thing about being against Boros is that the best they can probably do is go for removal, and by the time Griselbrand's come down to be removed, he's already done his damage. Let's go Temple of the False God. Oh, and a Crystal Vein as well, so that's pretty good. We'll just play a swamp here, and then we've got 4, 5, 6. Yeah, so our opponent knows that Griselbrand's coming down next turn, unless they can get rid of one of these rocks. Field of Ruin isn't quite going to help them, it's not going to be fast enough. Had we have gone for Temple of the False God, then it might have helped them, but we played our lands in the correct order, thankfully. We drop the Griselbrand, and they're going for something in response. Okay, Field of Ruin onto the Temple of the False God is fine. We actually have some stuff in here that cares about basic swamps, doubling up the mana on those, so they might have helped us there. Then we're not going to go for the card draw just yet because we'll have to discard. We'll do it on our opponent's turn. And there is our opponent's god. No creatures in play yet though, so not necessarily too worried about that. Let's draw 7 with our Griselbrand, showing off how broken Griselbrand is at this point. Yeah, we clear a bunch of lands off the top, get into a Phyrexian Arena, and go for the throat, some nice removal. We'll just drop a swamp. Not going to go for the sinkhole, I don't want my opponent conceding on us. We'll just go for some more ramp in Solemn Simulacrum, and, well, Liliana technically isn't ramp. We might actually go for the minus on Liliana so that we can swing in for a lot of damage with Griselbrand, and therefore gain a lot of life. These are the types of cards I was talking about that care about basic swamps. We'll give Griselbrand +X/+X, where X is the number of swamps we control. And this just means that we are gaining a bunch more life. We're still not going to take them out with commander damage next turn. Let's get rid of the Verdant Catacombs. And we're not going to go for Sinkhole, so let's get rid of that. It's actually, probably shouldn't have gone for the discard on Sinkhole because our opponent might draw into a Maze of Ith. But at least it makes the game somewhat more interesting if they do. Unfortunately for them, they get into Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx. Then going for the Austere command, we might as well draw some cards in response to that. That is all artifacts and all creatures. And we've got a bunch more mana in extra planar lens, so yeah, that's fine. That's no problem. We won't struggle getting into our Griselbrand again. And we draw into an Oblivion Stone off of Solemn. So if our opponent starts to attempt to rebuild here, then at least we can do something about all that. We'll play and tap a swamp so that we can get this extra planar lens out. Sacrifice the tapped swamp. And then we've got Emrakul, I think. Well, let's have our opponent discard some stuff first. Yes, we can go for Declaration of Stone there. And then Inquisition of Kozilek can get rid of the hammer. And then we go in for Emrakul, take control of our opponent's next turn. And they decide to scoop it, as you would expect. They had Firemane Avenger, Lightning Bolt and High Market in hand. And a Thespian Stage as well, so we probably would have gone for casting the Firemane Avenger and then sacrificing it to High Market and then having our opponent Lightning Bolt himself. And yeah, I think that would truly have been them out of the game, although I think they were already anyway, thanks to us getting down our broken commander. If you ever needed proof why Griselbrand is banned in most formats and in 1 vs 1 commander, then hopefully this is a good example of why. Hope you all enjoyed it anyway. I've been meaning to build this one for a while, and we're getting into a bit of a lull period now. The next set comes out early next year, so gonna do some catching up on some old commanders. I'm tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you for watching.